The morning broke cold over Fort Benning. Frost clung to the rifle ranges like a memory that refused to fade. Sergeant First Class Keira Morgan stood at the firing line, her breath forming small clouds in the Georgia air. She was 32 years old and looked like someone who had learned to measure the world in increments of distance and wind. Before her, 8 students lay prone in the dirt. Young men, mostly. A few women, all of them desperate to prove something to someone who had stopped caring about proof years ago. She walked the line slowly, boots crunching on gravel, eyes scanning positions with the kind of attention surgeons give to incisions. "Your father taught you wrong," she said. Her voice carried across the range without effort. "Forget mercy. Remember math." One of the students, a corporal with a fresh Ranger tab, lifted his head slightly. "Ma'am, isn't the goal to neutralize the target?" "The goal," Morgan said, "is to make the bullet arrive before the thought does." She knelt beside him, adjusted his elbow by a fraction of an inch. "Your body is a machine. Your mind is the operator. If the operator hesitates, the machine fails." She stood and moved to the firing platform. Her own rifle waited there. An M2010 enhanced sniper rifle, matte black, worn in the places where hands grip and shoulders settle. She had carried variants of this weapon through mountains and deserts, through nights so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat in your ears. "Demonstration," she announced. The students shifted to watch. Morgan dropped into position with the economy of movement that comes from 10,000 repetitions. No wasted motion, no theater, just the physics of body meeting earth meeting steel. The target sat 1,200 meters downrange. A standard silhouette, man-sized, positioned at the edge of what most people considered reasonable. She did not rush. Rushed shots were missed shots. She read the wind flags, noted the mirage rising from the berm, calculated the density altitude in her head. Her fingers moved across the turrets of the scope with the precision of a pianist finding keys in the dark. Then she stopped thinking and let her body remember. The trigger broke. The rifle spoke. Downrange, the target shivered and a hole appeared in the center mass, so perfectly placed it looked painted. One of the students whistled low. "Ma'am, is it true you never missed?" Morgan stood, safetied the weapon, and turned to face them. Her eyes were the color of winter sky. "I missed once," she said. "He's why I'm here, not there." The students did not ask who. Some questions carried their own answers in the silence that followed them. She walked back toward the office building as the range went active behind her. The crack of rifles became a rhythm she no longer heard. It was the sound of her life, background noise, the heartbeat of a world she understood better than the one outside the fence line. Inside her office, the phone was ringing. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Old habits. Never appear eager. Never let them know you were waiting. "Sergeant Morgan," she said. The voice on the other end was clipped, official male. "Sergeant First Class Morgan, this is Colonel Davies, Pentagon personnel. You are to report to Building 472, Briefing Room C, 1400 hours today. A flight has been arranged. Dress uniform. This is not a request." She checked her watch. It was 06:15. "Colonel, I have classes scheduled through 1600. Your classes have been reassigned. The car will arrive at 0700. Confirmation code is Sparrow 6. The line went dead. Morgan stood holding the phone for a long moment. Sparrow 6. She had not heard that phrase in 15 years. It was her father's call sign. Major James Morgan, MACVSOG, dead in Kandahar in 2004 when Keira was 17 years old. The Army had told her it was an IED. Catastrophic damage. Closed casket. Flag folded into a triangle that now sat on her mantel next to a photo of a man she barely remembered smiling. She set the phone down carefully, as if it might break. At 0700, a black sedan with government plates pulled up to her quarters. The driver did not speak. They drove in silence through Georgia countryside that looked like every other piece of America she had seen from the back of military vehicles. Trees, fields, small towns that scrolled past like something half-remembered. The plane was a Gulfstream, not commercial. Inside were two other passengers. Both men, both older, both wearing the kind of suits that said contractor without saying a word. They did not introduce themselves. She did not ask. They landed at Reagan National at 11:30. Another car. More silence. The Pentagon rose in the distance, that massive five-sided fortress that looked, from above, like geometry trying to contain chaos. Building 472 was not part of the main complex. It sat behind fences within fences, the kind of place that did not appear on public maps. The guards checked her ID 3 times. The last one scanned her retinas. Briefing Room C was deep underground. Concrete walls, no windows, fluorescent lights that hummed with a frequency just below hearing. A single table, 6 chairs, 4 of them occupied. At the head of the table sat General Paul Hayes. 4 stars on his shoulders, silver hair cropped military short, eyes that had seen enough years and enough wars to know the difference between strategy and slaughter. He was 62 years old and looked like stone that had been carved into the shape of a man. To his right, Major Derek Vance, 42, Intelligence Corps, the kind of officer who lived in files and data streams. His hands were soft, but his eyes were not. To his left, a woman Morgan did not recognize. Mid-40s, blonde hair pulled back severely, civilian clothes but military posture. She wore a wedding ring and no other jewelry. The fourth chair held a man in his late 50s, graying at the temples, expensive suit, no rank insignia. Civilian. But the way Hayes deferred to him with a nod said this was someone with pull. Morgan stood at attention. General. Hayes gestured to the empty chair. Sit down, Sergeant. We have a lot to cover and not much time. She sat, kept her spine straight, kept her hands on the table where everyone could see them. Hayes slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs, crime scene photos, 13 of them, 13 different locations, 13 bodies, all male, all middle-aged, all killed the same way. Single gunshot wound to the head, extreme distance, no witnesses. Morgan studied each photo, noted the angles, the wound channels, the environments, mountains mostly, remote locations, places where a shooter could set up and disappear. 13 victims, Hayes said, all retired CIA officers, all killed in the last 6 weeks, all in Montana, same weapon, same shooter or shooters. Vance leaned forward. Ballistics indicate Russian .338 Lapua Magnum. Thermal imaging suggests targets were acquired through advanced optics. No shell casings recovered. No footprints. No DNA. Whoever is doing this knows fieldcraft. Morgan looked up. You think it's foreign? We know it's foreign, the civilian said. His voice had the smooth quality of someone used to being listened to. Signals intelligence intercepted chatter referencing a cell called Nightingale. 4 operators, all female, all trained in FSB Spetsnaz doctrine. Why me? Morgan said. It was not a question. Because, Hayes said, the 14th target is Senator William Hartley, Armed Services Committee. He will be in Montana in 48 hours for a hunting trip. We cannot cancel without causing a political incident. We need someone on the ground who can stop this. You have entire teams, Morgan said. Delta SEALs HRT. Why a cadre instructor? The woman spoke for the first time. Her voice was cold and precise, because one of the victims was Thomas Beckett, and you knew him. The name hit Morgan like a fist. She kept her face still, but something behind her eyes changed. Beckett, the man who had handed her the flag at her father's funeral, the man who had looked at her with something like guilt and said your father was a hero. "How did you know I knew him?" Morgan said. "We know everything," Sergeant Vance said. "We know you wrote him letters for 3 years after your father died, asking questions about Kandahar. We know he never answered. We know you stopped writing when you enlisted." Morgan's jaw tightened. What does Beckett have to do with this? Hayes pulled out another photograph. This one was different, older, faded. It showed a man in his 30s, fit, military haircut, standing next to a Russian man with Slavic features. Between them, a woman, pregnant, smiling with the kind of hope that comes before the world teaches you better. "The Russian is Alexei Volkov," Hayes said. "KGB defector 1998, brought over by CIA with promises of safety and a new life. The woman is Maria Chen, American citizen, nurse. They met in Kabul, married, had a daughter." "And the American," Morgan said quietly. Hayes met her eyes. "Major James Morgan, your father. He was Volkov's handler." The room seemed to contract. Morgan stared at the photograph. Her father looked young, younger than she had ever known him. He looked like someone who still believed the work mattered. "I was never told my father worked with defectors," she said. "You were never told a lot of things," the civilian said. "Your father was part of a highly classified program, Operation Ember, ran from 2003 to 2005. Black site interrogations, intelligence gathering, wet work when necessary." Morgan's hands formed fists under the table. "My father was MACV-SOG. He did reconnaissance." "He did what he was ordered to do," Hayes said, "as did we all." Vance slid another file across. Inside names, 13 names. Thomas Beckett was number 7, beside each name a date, beside each date a location, all Montana, all recent. "These men," Vance said, "were all part of Operation Ember. All of them retired between 2003 and 2005. All of them died within 6 weeks. "Someone is cleaning house," the woman said. "Someone who knows the program, someone with a list." "Or someone with a grudge," Hayes added. "Volkov was burned, sold back to Moscow by someone inside CIA. He was executed in 2006. If his daughter survived, if she trained with FSB, if she came here for revenge." "Then she has 11 more names," Morgan finished. "And one of them is Senator Hartley." Hayes nodded. Hartley's father was on the oversight committee for Ember. He died in 2006. Heart attack officially. But if Nightingale's cell is targeting everyone connected to that program, the son might be leverage, or a target himself. "What do you need from me?" Morgan said. "We need you operational," Hayes said. "We need you in Montana in 24 hours. We need you to protect the senator and identify the shooters. If possible, capture. If necessary, eliminate." "I am not combat deployed," Morgan said. "I am cadre, I teach." "You were 1st SFOD Delta," Vance said. "You have more confirmed kills than anyone in this room. You were discharged to cadre status because of Syria, but your skill set has not degraded. We have verified that." Morgan went very still. Syria was not something she discussed. Syria was where her spotter, her partner, Sergeant Dale Hale, had died because she took a shot she should not have taken. The mission succeeded. Hale did not come home. The Army called it acceptable losses. Morgan called it the reason she stopped pulling triggers. "I don't hunt anymore," she said. Hayes leaned back. "Then we will find someone else. But that someone will not have your motivation. They will not care that Thomas Beckett might have answers about your father. They will not care that the woman hunting these men might know why James Morgan really died." Morgan looked up sharply. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," Hayes said carefully, "that your father's death was not an IED. It was a bullet, fired by someone who knew him, someone who wanted him silent." The room held its breath. "Who?" Morgan said. "That," Hayes said, "is what you are going to find out, if you accept this mission." Morgan stared at the photographs. 13 dead men. Her father, a Russian defector, a pregnant woman who smiled at the camera like she believed in tomorrow. Threads connecting across 20 years, pulling tight around a question she had been asking since she was 17. She looked at Hayes. "I need proof I'm still operational. You said you verified. Show me." Hayes smiled thinly. He gestured to Vance, who stood and opened a side door. Beyond it, a stairwell leading down. They descended 2 levels. The air grew colder, the walls thicker. At the bottom, a firing range, not a training range, a testing range, climate-controlled, measured to the millimeter. The kind of place where records were set and secrets were kept. A rifle waited on the bench. M2010, pristine, beside it ammunition, a stopwatch, a blindfold. Hayes stood at the observation window. "You have 80 seconds to assemble that rifle from parts, blindfolded. 90 seconds is passing. 80 is competitive. 70 is exceptional." "And if I do 70, Morgan said, "then we will believe you are still who you were." Morgan picked up the blindfold, tied it herself. The world went black. She heard her own breathing, felt the cool air on her skin, reached for the rifle case with hands that remembered every spring, every pin, every action. Her fingers moved, bolt assembly, magazine well, trigger group, scope mount. Each piece had a weight, a texture, a place. She did not think. Thinking was too slow. She let muscle memory become the map. 64 seconds, Vance called out. Morgan pulled the blindfold off. The rifle sat before her, fully assembled, ready. She picked it up, checked the action, seated a magazine, moved to the firing line without waiting for permission. Downrange, targets at various distances, 500 meters, 1,000, 1,500. She did not ask which to engage. She engaged all of them. 5 shots, 5 hits. The grouping at 1,500 meters would have fit inside a coffee cup. Hayes came down from the observation booth. His face was unreadable. He looked at the targets through a spotting scope, then looked at Morgan. "You did not just hit them," he said. "You spelled something." Morgan set the rifle down, looked at the targets. The 5 holes at that distance formed a letter, H for Hayes. "I wanted you to know I see you," she said. Hayes almost smiled. "Good, because I see you too, Sergeant, and I know what you are capable of." He handed her a folder. Inside, orders, official, signed, effective immediately, temporary duty assignment, duration classified, authority level classified, rules of engagement flexible. Also inside, a plane ticket to Montana, a set of keys, a map with a single location marked, and at the bottom a handwritten note. "Ask about Protocol 7. She looked at Hayes. "What is Protocol 7? Hayes turned to leave. "That is what Thomas Beckett was trying to tell you in those letters you never got. He wrote back, Sergeant, every time. The letters were intercepted." "By who?" Morgan said. "By people who thought you were safer not knowing," Hayes said. He walked toward the stairs, then paused. "Your father was a good man who asked bad questions. Try not to make the same mistake." He left. Vance followed. The woman whose name Morgan still did not know lingered for a moment. "They are sending you into something that does not have clean edges," she said quietly. "If you find the truth, it will not set you free. It will make you a target." "Then I will be a target who shoots back," Morgan said. The woman nodded. "I hope so, for your sake." She left Morgan alone in the range. The smell of gunpowder hung in the air like memory. Morgan looked at the targets, at the letter H she had not consciously intended to create, at the proof that her hands still knew the language her mind sometimes wanted to forget. She picked up the folder, read the orders again, felt the weight of them, not the paper, the implications. Someone had kept her father's letters from reaching her. Someone had lied about how he died. Someone was cleaning up loose ends 20 years later. And now they were sending her to Montana, to protect a senator, to hunt women who might be hunting the same truth she was. Morgan left the range, took the stairs up, walked out into sunlight that felt too bright after the concrete dark. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Fort Benning has already been notified. Your students have a new instructor. Your quarters have been cleared. The plane leaves in 3 hours. Do not miss it. No signature, no name, just the certainty of people who moved pieces on boards that people like Morgan only saw from below. She got in the car. The driver already knew where to go. At Reagan National, the Gulfstream waited. This time she was alone. The cabin was silent except for the engines. She sat in a leather seat that cost more than she made in a month and opened the file again. 13 photographs. 13 men who had known her father, who had worked beside him in places the government pretended did not exist, who had died in a pattern too precise to be coincidence. She studied Thomas Beckett's photo the longest. He had kind eyes in the picture, old eyes, the kind of eyes that carry things they wish they could put down. The plane took off. Morgan watched the city fall away beneath her, the Potomac River like a scar through green, the Pentagon a perfect geometric statement in a world that had no other perfections. She closed her eyes, let herself remember. Age 12, Colorado. A fire tower on a mountain her father said was called Pikes Peak, though she was never sure if he was telling the truth or just making childhood magic. They climbed together, her small hand in his large one, up stairs that creaked and swayed. At the top, he had shown her the world, pointed to ridgelines and valleys and explained how land spoke if you knew how to listen, how high ground was not just tactical advantage but moral clarity, how sometimes you climbed into a trap just to see who said it. Why would you do that, she had asked. Because he said if you are going to die you should die knowing, not guessing. She had not understood then, she understood now. The plane began its descent. Below, Montana spread out like a memory of a country that used to be wilder, mountains that still had snow, rivers that had not yet been named by corporations, land that looked from above like it might still have room for people who wanted to disappear. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. Landing in 10 minutes, Sergeant. Ground transport is waiting. Weather is clear. Temperature is 42 degrees. Welcome to Big Sky Country. Morgan gathered her gear. A small duffel, her personal rifle case, a backpack with the essentials. Everything else was theater. You did not need much to kill. You needed less to survive. The plane touched down at a private airstrip outside Whitefish. No terminal, no crowds, just a runway and a hangar and a single black pickup truck with government plates. A man stood beside the truck. Late 50s, weathered face, sheriff's badge on his belt. He wore jeans and a canvas jacket and looked like he had been born from the mountains behind him. Sergeant Morgan, he said. Name's Carl Briggs, Sheriff of Flathead County. I am told I am your local liaison, though nobody told me what that means. Morgan shook his hand. His grip was firm, the kind of handshake men gave when they meant it. It means you show me where the bodies were found and then stay out of my way, she said. Briggs almost smiled. Fair enough, trucks this way. They drove north into land that looked like God had taken his time. Glacier National Park rose in the distance, white peaks against blue sky. The roads were empty, the kind of empty that comes from space, not absence. Beckett's place is about 40 minutes, Briggs said. Not much to see. FBI came through, cleared the scene, took everything that mattered. But you can walk the ground if you want. I want, Morgan said. Briggs glanced at her. You knew him. I knew of him, Morgan said. He knew my father. Briggs nodded, did not press. They drove in silence, the truck eating miles, the mountains growing closer. Eventually, he turned off the main road onto a gravel track that wound through pines. The cabin sat in a clearing, small, one story, log construction. It looked like a place a man went to forget or to remember depending on what haunted him. Morgan got out. The air was thin and cold and tasted like evergreen. She walked the perimeter slowly, noted sightlines, angles, the window that faced west, the one with the bullet hole. Briggs stood by the truck, watching her work. You move like you have done this before, he said. I have, Morgan said. She knelt by the window, measured the hole with her fingers, estimated the angle, looked out across the clearing to the ridgeline beyond, calculated distance. 1,600 meters, she said, give or take, wind coming from the northwest. Shooter was elevated, probably on that second ridge. Took the shot just after sunset when the light was failing. Beckett never saw it coming. FBI said the same thing, Briggs said quietly, down to the meter. Morgan stood, walked into the cabin. It had been cleaned but not scrubbed. She could still see the faint outline where Beckett had fallen, could still smell the copper tang of blood under the pine saw. On the counter, a coffee cup, half full, cold. Beckett had been making dinner when he died, a frozen meal still in the microwave, a man living alone, a man who had stopped expecting company. She opened drawers, found the ordinary debris of a life, silverware, batteries, old receipts. In the bedroom, a dresser, clothes folded with military precision. In the closet, a lockbox. It was open, empty. The FBI had taken whatever it held. Morgan knelt, looked inside, saw the faint outline in dust, rectangular, the size of a journal or a file. Briggs appeared in the doorway. They take everything. Everything that mattered, Morgan said. She stood, walked back to the living room, noticed a bookshelf. Old paperbacks mostly, westerns, thrillers, men writing about men doing violence with codes. One book sat differently than the others, pulled out slightly. She slid it free. Inside the cover, a business card, no name, just a phone number, and below it, handwritten, Protocol 7. Morgan pocketed the card, stepped outside. The sun was setting now, painting the mountains gold and red. She looked at the ridgeline where the shooter had been. Imagined lying there, patient, watching a man make coffee, waiting for the perfect moment between heartbeats. Professional, she said to Briggs, not angry, not rushed, just a job. Briggs joined her. That is what scares me. 13 jobs all the same. Whoever is doing this is not making mistakes. Morgan walked to the truck, got in. Briggs drove them back toward town as darkness came down like a curtain. Your place is about 10 miles from here, Briggs said. Cabin, private, stocked with supplies. Coordinates are in the file. Satellite phone works if cell does not. Closest backup is me, and I am 30 minutes out. I work alone, Morgan said. Briggs nodded, figured, but if you need something, call. I am old, but I am not useless. Morgan looked at him. You serve. Marines, Briggs said, long time ago. Beirut 83, barracks bombing, lost half my unit in 30 seconds. Thank you for your service, Morgan said. It was automatic. The phrase everyone said because no one knew what else to say. Briggs smiled sadly. You too, Sergeant. though I suspect your war is not over yet. He dropped her at the coordinates. Another cabin, bigger than Beckett's, set back in trees with clear sightlines in 3 directions. Tactical. Someone had chosen this place with care. Inside, the cabin was functional. Cot, table, wood stove, a laptop with encrypted satellite uplink, a weapons locker with the code written on the orders. Morgan opened the locker. Inside, ammunition, optics, a suppressor, a ghillie suit, everything she would need to disappear into terrain and emerge only when it was time to kill. She set up her rifle, cleaned it though it did not need cleaning. Ritual, preparation, the small motions that told your body the work was beginning. At 2100 hours, the satellite phone rang. She answered. Vance's voice. Sergeant, we have new intelligence. Thermal satellite captured movement on the northern ridges 6 hours ago. 4 signatures moving in tactical formation. They are already in position. For what? Morgan said. For you, Vance said. They knew you were coming. They are waiting. Morgan looked out the window at the darkening forest. How did they know? We are working on that, Vance said. For now, assume your position is compromised. Senator Hartley arrives in 36 hours. Your mission is to keep him alive and identify the cell. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Understood, Morgan said. The line went dead. She set the phone down, checked her rifle again, loaded a magazine, chambered a round, looked out at the night that was now full of possibilities, most of them lethal. Somewhere out there, 4 women were hunting. Women who knew her name. Women who might know why her father died. Women who had already killed 13 men and would kill more if given the chance. Morgan turned off the cabin lights, sat in darkness, let her eyes adjust, let her breathing slow, let the part of her that was a weapon come forward and the part that was a woman step back. At 0300, a sound, faint, a branch breaking under weight that should not be there. She moved to the window, rifle up, scanning through the scope with night vision activated. A figure 800 meters, moving slowly through the trees, then another, then 2 more. They were not trying to hide. They were announcing themselves, showing her they were here. Morgan tracked the lead figure through her scope, watched the way she moved, professional, disciplined, no wasted motion. The woman stopped at the edge of the clearing, raised something to her face, binoculars or a scope. They looked at each other across the distance. Hunter and hunter, predator and predator. For a long moment neither moved. Then the woman lowered her optic, raised a radio to her mouth, and spoke words Morgan could not hear but could imagine. She knows we are here. Morgan's phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. North Tower, alone, 0300 or the senator dies tomorrow. The woman in the tree line turned and vanished into darkness. Morgan checked her watch. 20 minutes to comply or refuse. 20 minutes to decide if she walked into a trap or let a United States senator become victim number 14. She thought of her father, of Thomas Becket, of 13 men who had died because they knew something someone wanted buried. She holstered her sidearm, slung her rifle, stepped out into the Montana night. The cold bit through her jacket. The stars were sharp as glass. The world was silent in the way of places that have seen blood and will see more. The North Tower was 3 miles through forest. She moved carefully, scanned for tripwires, for pressure plates, for the 1,000 small ways people killed each other in the dark, found nothing, which meant they were very good or very confident. The tower rose from the trees like a skeleton. Old fire watch abandoned decades ago, stairs spiraling up into black. She climbed, each step a choice, each choice a risk. At the top, a room, windows on all sides, and in the center a woman. 34 years old maybe. Dark hair pulled back, Slavic features, eyes like winter. She wore tactical clothing, no insignia, and she held no weapon that Morgan could see. But her hands rested in positions that said she could reach one fast. They stared at each other. Two women who had killed for countries that pretended to be enemies while sharing the same methods. Morgan broke the silence. "You are not Russian." The woman's mouth moved. "Not quite a smile. Neither are you, but our fathers were brothers in blood." Morgan kept her rifle low but ready. "I do not know what that means." "It means," the woman said, "that Major James Morgan saved my father's life, and 13 men murdered him for it. I am here to balance the scales." "Who are you?" Morgan said. The woman tilted her head. "You can call me Nadia, though that is not the name I was born with. Names are easy to change. Blood is not." Nadia reached slowly into her jacket. Morgan's finger moved to the trigger guard. The woman pulled out a USB drive, tossed it across the room. It skidded to Morgan's feet. "Protocol 7, Nadia said. "The answer you will not like." Morgan did not pick it up. "Why not just kill the senator and finish your work?" "Because," Nadia said quietly, "he is not on my list. He is on theirs. The people who sent you here are the same people who killed your father. They are using you to clean up their mistake." Morgan's pulse stayed steady. Her hands did not shake, but something in her chest tightened like a fist. "You are lying." "Am I?" Nadia gestured to the USB drive. "Watch the files, then decide who is lying." "Why should I trust you?" "Because in 10 minutes, the men they sent to kill us both will arrive, and you will have to choose who to shoot." As if on cue, Morgan's radio crackled. Briggs's voice urgent. "Morgan, we have movement. 4 contacts, tactical gear heading to your position from the south. They are not friendlies." Morgan looked at Nadia. "You set this up." Nadia shook her head. "They did. I am just the excuse. Pick up the drive, Sergeant, or die ignorant." Morgan bent, grabbed the USB, pocketed it, brought her rifle up as gunfire erupted below. Muzzle flashes in the trees, rounds punching through the tower walls. Nadia moved to the window, pulled a sidearm from somewhere, fired twice. A scream below. She moved like water, like violence that had learned to dance. Morgan took position at the opposite window, scanned through her optic, saw 4 figures in black advancing with suppressed weapons, professional, military, American. "They are ours," she said aloud. "They are theirs," Nadia corrected, "and now they are no one's." Morgan made a decision, aimed, fired. A man dropped, she shifted, fired again. Another fell. Nadia was firing 2 controlled pairs, each shot a statement. The remaining 2 broke contact, retreated into darkness. Smart. Regroup and flank or call for backup. Nadia holstered her weapon. "You just killed federal contractors," she said. "Welcome to the other side of the lie." Morgan's radio crackled again. "Briggs, Morgan, what the hell is happening?" "Stay back," Morgan said. "This is not your fight." She turned to Nadia. The woman was already moving toward the stairs. "Wait," Morgan said. Nadia paused. "Your father's last words were fire and vanish. He said them to me. I was 4 years old. I did not understand. Now I do." She descended into darkness. Morgan stood alone in the tower. Below, 2 men lay dead. Men sent by someone. Men who had tried to kill her. Men who wore no identification and carried weapons that would not trace to anyone official. She picked up her rifle, looked at the USB drive in her pocket, felt the weight of choices she had not yet made pulling at her like gravity. The climb down was slower. Careful, she checked the bodies. No ID, no tags, phones encrypted, professional erasure. She moved back through the forest toward the cabin. Her mind was running calculations. variables, probabilities, the math of who to trust when everyone was lying. At the cabin, she locked the door, drew the curtains, opened the laptop, inserted the USB drive. A password prompt appeared, your father's last words. Morgan's hands hovered over the keyboard. She had been told fire and vanish by Nadia, but that seemed too easy, too obvious. She thought back, tried to remember. Letters her father had sent from deployment, words he had said before he left for the last time. She typed Sparrow 6. The files unlocked. What she saw made her forget to breathe. Documents classified, Operation Ember, dates from 2003 to 2005. A list of personnel, a list of targets, a list of terminations. 47 names marked deceased. Number 23, James Morgan. Cause of death, Protocol 7. Executed by, redacted. Authorized by, redacted. Her father had not died in an IED. He had been shot by someone he knew, on orders from someone who had signed the paperwork. Morgan's vision narrowed. Her hands formed fists. She read through the files. Interrogation logs, black sites, prisoners who disappeared, intelligence sold to bidders, Alexei Volkov marked as burned asset, Maria Chen marked as collateral, their daughter marked as unknown status. At the bottom of the file, a single audio clip. She clicked it. Her father's voice, older than she remembered, tired, but still carrying the authority of a man who believed orders mattered. This is Major James Morgan, MACV-SOG, recording for posterity. If you are hearing this, I am dead. What they are doing here is wrong. Protocol 7 is not justice. It is murder with paperwork. I have told General Hayes I will not participate. He has made it clear that non-compliance is not an option. I am not afraid to die. I am afraid that my daughter will never know why. Keira, if you ever hear this, know that I chose the hard right over the easy wrong. I hope you can do the same. The recording ended. Morgan sat in silence. The kind of silence that follows the moment you realize everything you believed was a foundation built on sand. Her phone buzzed. A text, another unknown number, but this one she recognized the pattern. Hayes. Good work neutralizing the contractors. Return to base. Mission parameters have changed. We will brief you in 12 hours. Morgan stared at the message. They knew she had killed the men. They knew she was in the tower. They had sent those men to die, to test her, or to silence her. She deleted the text, turned off the phone, sat in darkness and listened to the sound of her own heartbeat. Outside, the Montana night was full of stars and secrets. Somewhere, Nadia was moving through that darkness with purpose. Somewhere, General Hayes was making calls to people who made problems disappear. And somewhere, buried in a grave marked with lies, her father was still waiting for someone to tell the truth. Morgan stood, checked her rifle, loaded her pack. She was not going back to base. She was going forward, into the lie, into the fire. She opened the door, stepped into cold that burned the lungs, began to walk toward the ridgeline where Thomas Beckett had died, where maybe, in the frozen ground and empty sky, there were still answers that had not yet been buried. Behind her, the cabin stood dark and silent, a place she would not return to. Ahead, the mountains rose like judgment. She climbed toward them, one step, then another, the way her father had taught her. High ground wins, but sometimes you climb into the trap to see who set it. She was climbing now, and she would see. The ridge climbed into darkness like a stairway built by something older than nations. Keira Morgan moved through pine shadow and moonlight, her breath forming ghosts in the cold. Behind her, the valley held secrets. Ahead, the mountain held answers. Neither would give them freely. She had been walking for 2 hours when the first sign appeared. Boot print in soft earth, recent enough that moisture still darkened the edges. Size 7, narrow heel, a woman's tread. The pattern showed deliberate placement, weight distributed to minimize sound, professional fieldcraft, the kind taught in places where mistakes meant body bags. Morgan knelt, studied the print, noted the depth, the angle, the direction of travel, north by northwest toward the high spine where Beckett had died, where someone with patience and a rifle had turned a man into a message. She rose, followed. The forest thinned as altitude increased. Trees gave way to scrub to stone. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of snow that had not yet fallen but would. October in Montana. The mountains remembering winter before the calendar did. At 3,000 meters, she found the cache, hidden under a rockfall that looked natural but was not. Inside a waterproof case, thermal optics, ammunition in Russian caliber, a radio frequency scanner, and a handwritten note on paper that had been folded and refolded until the creases were soft as cloth. The note said, "If you are reading this, you chose to climb. Meet me where your father taught you to see. Sunrise, come alone or do not come at all." Morgan pocketed the note, checked her watch. 4 hours until dawn. She could make the rendezvous or she could return to the cabin and call Hayes and pretend she believed men who sent killers to clean up their mistakes. She climbed. The summit came slowly, the way all true things do. By the time the sky began to pale, she stood on a plateau of granite and ice where the world fell away in every direction. To the east, the sun prepared to rise. To the west, the valley still slept in shadow. Between them, a woman sat on a boulder with a rifle across her knees. Nadia looked different in daylight. Younger, older, both at once. Her face carried the kind of beauty that came with a price, the sharp edges of someone who had survived things that should have killed her. "You came," Nadia said. She did not sound surprised. "Your father would have." Morgan stopped 10 meters away, kept her rifle slung but ready. "My father is dead because he came to places like this." "No," Nadia said. "He died because he refused to leave. There is a difference." The sun touched the horizon. Light spilled across the mountains like something molten. For a moment, neither woman spoke. They watched the world wake up and pretended not to know that one of them might not see it sleep again. Nadia broke the silence. "You listened to the recording." "I did." "Then you know they lied to you. About how he died, about why." Morgan's jaw tightened. "I know someone executed him and called it protocol. I do not know who pulled the trigger." "Does it matter? The order came from above. The bullet came from below. Your father understood the system kills the same way either direction." "It matters," Morgan said, "because I need a name. Not a rank, not a clearance level, a name." Nadia stood, set her rifle aside with deliberate care. "If I give you the name, what will you do with it?" "What my father could not." "Which is?" "Make them answer for it." Nadia smiled without warmth. "Revenge is not justice, Sergeant. It is just slower murder." "Then call it what you want," Morgan said. "I call it balance." Nadia walked to the edge of the plateau, looked down at the valley where the morning mist rose like smoke from a fire no one could see. "My father believed in balance too," she said. "Alexei Volkov, good man, terrible spy. He defected because he thought America was the place where truth mattered. Your father tried to protect him. 13 men sold him back to Moscow for money and career advancement. The FSB executed him in a basement in St. Petersburg. I was 11. Old enough to remember his face, young enough to think someone would care. And they did not. They did not." "So you became what killed him," Morgan said. Nadia turned. Her eyes were the color of Arctic ice. "I became what could hunt them. There is a difference." Morgan stepped closer. "If you wanted justice, you could have gone to the media, to Congress, to someone with the power to prosecute. I did, Nadia said quietly. I spent 5 years gathering evidence, files, recordings, testimony. I handed it to 3 journalists, 2 senators, and 1 federal prosecutor. The journalists died in accidents. The senators retired. The prosecutor moved to private practice defending defense contractors. Evidence has no weight when the people who judge it are the people who committed the crime. So you started killing them. I started removing them from the equation. 13 men, 13 bullets, each one a man who knew what they did and chose silence over confession. Morgan's hand moved to her sidearm without thought. And what about the senator? Hartley never touched your father. He was a child when Ember ran. Nadia's face hardened. Hartley is not my target, he is theirs. The people who sent you here are planning to kill him and blame me, create a crisis, justify a crackdown, bury the truth under the weight of a new war. You have proof of this. I have intercepts, communications between Hayes and someone he calls principal, discussing timelines, discussing your deployment, discussing acceptable casualties. Show me. Nadia reached into her pack, pulled out a small digital recorder, set it on the rock between them, pressed play. Static, then voices, filtered through encryption but recognizable. Hayes, Morgan is in position. She will protect Hartley until the window opens. Unknown voice, older, authoritative, and if she discovers the truth. Hayes, she will not have time. The Russian will make contact. Morgan will engage. We clean up both problems simultaneously. Unknown, the senator must die on schedule, public, spectacular, frame the foreign asset, then activate Protocol 7 for Morgan. Hayes understood. What about Vance? Unknown, Vance is loyal. He believes what we tell him to believe, use him to coordinate, keep him clean. Hayes and after. Unknown. After, Operation Ember becomes a footnote in a classified file no one will ever read. We have maintained operational security for 20 years. Another month will not break us. The recording ended. Morgan stood motionless. The wind blew across the plateau. The sun climbed higher. The world continued its rotation as if the words she had just heard had not rewritten the architecture of everything she believed. That voice, Morgan said. The principal, who is it? Nadia ejected the device, pocketed it. That is what I am still trying to determine. Voiceprint analysis suggests someone in their 60s, military background, command authority, but the encryption distorts enough that I cannot match it to known recordings. Morgan's mind raced through possibilities. Hayes was a 4-star. Above him, only civilian leadership, Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor, people whose names appeared in history books and whose crimes did not. Why are you telling me this? Morgan said. You could have killed Hartley, framed Hayes, and disappeared. You do not need me. Nadia met her eyes. Because your father saved my family when he had no reason to. Because I was taught that debts to the dead are debts to the living. Because I am tired of killing alone. Morgan absorbed that, turned it over, looked for the lie underneath and found only the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying weight no one else could see. You want an alliance. I want someone who understands that the enemy is not the person across the battlefield. It is the person behind the desk who sent them there. And if I say no, then I disappear. Hartley dies, you get blamed. Hayes gets promoted. And in 5 years they do this again with different names and different graves. Morgan looked east. The sun had fully risen now. The valley below was waking. Somewhere down there, Senator Hartley was preparing for a hunting trip that would end with his name on a memorial wall. Somewhere, Hayes was making calls to ensure the pieces fell exactly as planned. Somewhere, men who wore flags on their shoulders were sharpening knives to stick in the backs of other men who wore the same. "What do you need from me?" Morgan said. 12 hours, Nadia answered. "Keep them distracted. I will get the evidence we need to expose principal. Proof that cannot be buried or ignored." "Evidence from where?" "From the one place they think is secure. Hayes has a safe house, 20 miles north. It contains hard files, the kind that do not exist digitally, the kind that prove everything." "You have been inside." "I have been outside. Security is significant but manageable." "For you," Morgan said. "What about me?" "You," Nadia said, "are going to do what they sent you to do. Protect the senator. Make them believe you are still their asset. When they move to kill him, you stop them, publicly, with witnesses. Create a moment too big to classify. And while I am doing that, you will be breaking into a federal safe house." Nadia smiled. "I have done worse for less." Morgan considered, weighed variables. Trust was a luxury people like them could not afford, but necessity made strange partnerships. Her father had allied with a Russian defector and died for it. Maybe the lesson was not to avoid the alliance. Maybe it was to finish what he started. 12 hours, Morgan said. Then we meet back here, you bring proof. I bring Hartley alive. We decide together what comes next. Agreed. They shook hands. The formality felt absurd on a mountaintop where two killers negotiated the terms of rebellion, but it also felt necessary. A contract written in grip strength and eye contact. Nadia retrieved her rifle. "One more thing," she said. "The men who attacked you last night, contractors, black budget, hired through a shell company called Trident Solutions. They specialize in problems that cannot be solved legally. I killed 2 of them. 4 more are still operational. They will try again, probably when you are with Hartley. Maximum chaos." "Good," Morgan said. "Let them come. I work better when the enemy is visible." Nadia studied her. "You are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone more like your father, idealistic, conflicted, trying to save everyone." Morgan slung her rifle. "My father is dead because he tried to save everyone. I am not here to save anyone. I am here to make sure the right people pay." Nadia nodded slowly. "Then we understand each other." They descended opposite sides of the mountain. Morgan watched Nadia disappear into the northern timber, moving with the fluid economy of someone who had spent years being hunted and had learned to hunt back. Then she turned south, toward the valley, toward the cabin and the mission, and the men who thought she was still theirs to command. The hike down took less time than the climb. Gravity helped. So did clarity. Morgan's mind worked through the tactical puzzle with the precision of someone assembling a rifle in the dark. Hartley would arrive in 8 hours. Hayes would position him in a kill zone. The contractors would provide the chaos. Nadia would use the distraction to infiltrate the safe house. Morgan would keep everyone alive long enough for the truth to break surface. Simple, impossible, necessary. At the cabin, Sheriff Briggs waited on the porch. He stood when he saw her, relief and suspicion fighting for control of his weathered face. "You did not answer your radio," he said. "I thought you were dead." "I was busy," Morgan said. "Doing what?" "Deciding whose side I am on." Briggs absorbed that, took off his hat, ran a hand through gray hair. "And did you decide?" "I decided the side that lies to me is not the side I die for." "That is a good decision. Dangerous, but good." Morgan climbed the porch steps. "You were Marines. Beirut 83. You understand chain of command." "I understand following orders," Briggs said. "I also understand when orders are wrong. Saw plenty of that in the barracks. 241 Marines killed because someone made a bad call about security. Command said it was acceptable risk. I said it was acceptable murder. Got me a court-martial and a general discharge. Kept my conscience. Lost my career. Would do it again. Morgan looked at him. Really looked. Saw the lines carved by years of living with choices most people never had to make. What did you refuse to do? Testify the way they wanted, Briggs said flatly. They wanted me to say the security was adequate. I said it was criminally negligent. They sent me home. And the investigation? Classified, Briggs said, buried under national security. Same story, different decade. Morgan nodded. Sometimes that is all you can do. Sometimes, Briggs agreed. Other times you pick up the torch and burn the people who gave the order. Is that what you are doing now? Briggs smiled grimly. I am retired, Sergeant, but if you need a hand holding a torch, I know where to find matches. Inside the cabin, Morgan checked her gear, reloaded magazines, cleaned optics, ran through scenarios in her mind like a chess player running through openings. Every move had a counter. Every counter had a cost. The trick was making sure the other side paid it. Her satellite phone rang. She let it ring twice before answering. Vance's voice, clipped and professional. Sergeant Morgan, Sitrep. Position secure, Morgan said. No contact since last night. Copy that. Senator Hartley's flight lands at 1500 local. He will be transported to the lodge at Eagle Creek. You will provide overwatch from the northern ridge. Rules of engagement remain weapons-free on any hostile contact. Understood, Morgan said. What about the contractors I engaged? What contractors? The 4 men in tactical gear who tried to kill me 12 hours ago. Silence. Then Vance carefully. Sergeant, there were no contractors deployed to your sector. Are you certain about what you saw? I am certain about what I shot, Morgan said. 2 down, confirmed kills, no ID, professional equipment. Someone sent them. Vance's voice changed, became quieter, more cautious. Stay on mission, Sergeant. Protect Hartley. Ignore distractions. We will debrief after extraction. The line went dead. Morgan set the phone down, looked at Briggs. They are pretending the contractors do not exist. Of course they are, Briggs said. Acknowledging them means acknowledging someone sent them. Easier to call you crazy. I am many things, Morgan said. Crazy is not one of them. I know that. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Morgan checked her rifle, loaded a fresh magazine. I am going to protect a senator. And when the people who want him dead make their move, I am going to make sure everyone sees who they are. Briggs nodded. You will need eyes you can trust. I can position on the southern approach. If anyone comes through that valley, I will see them. You are retired. I am bored. Bored men do stupid things. Might as well make it useful. Morgan almost smiled. Thank you, Sheriff. Carl, Briggs said. If we are going to commit treason together, might as well use first names. At 1400 hours, Morgan moved into position. The northern ridge overlooked Eagle Creek Lodge like a god looking down on something built by people who thought they were safe. The lodge was timber and stone, expensive in the way things are expensive when someone else is paying. Hartley had rented it for 3 days. Hunting trip, bonding with donors, the kind of political theater that happened in places far from cameras. Morgan set up 800 meters out, prone position behind a rockfall, ghillie suit blending her into the landscape until she was more geology than woman. She scoped the lodge, noted exits, windows, fields of fire, calculated angles the way a sniper calculates everything, in minutes of angle and meters of distance. Briggs's voice crackled over the encrypted radio. I am in position. Southern Valley is clear. 2 vehicles just passed heading your direction. Black SUVs, government plates. Copy, Morgan said, Hartley arriving on schedule. The SUVs pulled up to the lodge. Doors opened. Senator William Hartley emerged, 63 years old, silver-haired, carrying himself with the confidence of someone who had spent 40 years making decisions for other people. Behind him, aides, security, men in suits who looked like they spent more time in gyms than offices. And behind them, stepping out of the second vehicle, Colonel Marcus Wren. Morgan's finger moved to the trigger guard. Wren, Hayes's second, the man who had sat in the briefing room in the Pentagon and said nothing while lies were told. He wore civilian clothes but moved like military, old habits carved too deep to hide. Wren surveyed the area with professional caution. His gaze swept the ridgeline where Morgan lay invisible. For a moment, she thought he saw her. Then he turned and followed Hartley inside. Briggs's voice, "You see Wren?" "I see him," Morgan said. "That complicate things." "Everything complicates things," Morgan said. "We just decide which complications kill us." The afternoon stretched long. Morgan watched the lodge through her scope, saw movement behind windows, Hartley gesturing, talking, performing the small rituals of power. Wren standing to the side, always watching, always positioned between the senator and the doors. At 1600 hours, Nadia's voice came through on a different frequency, a short-range encrypted channel they had established on the mountain. "I am at the safe house. Security is heavier than expected. We'll need additional time." "How much time?" Morgan asked. 2 hours, maybe 3. Hartley is exposed. If they move before you have the evidence, we lose leverage. "Then make sure they do not move," Nadia said. The line went quiet. Morgan scanned the perimeter, noted the light changing, the sun moving west, shadows lengthening. In 2 hours it would be dusk, poor light, good for ambush, bad for defense. She keyed the radio. "Carl, we may have company at sunset." "I will be ready," Briggs said. At 1730 the first vehicle appeared. Not from the road, from the forest. A black pickup, no plates, moving slowly through the trees on a logging road that should have been closed. Morgan tracked it through her scope. 2 men in front, both armed, tactical clothing, no insignia. "Contact," she radioed. "1 vehicle, 2 packs, coming from the east." "I see them," Briggs said. "Want me to intercept?" "Negative, let them come. I need to see what they do." The truck stopped half a kilometer from the lodge. The men got out, conferred. One pulled out a tablet, the other scanned the ridgeline with binoculars. They were professionals, careful, not rushing. Morgan's instinct screamed. This was wrong, too exposed, too early. If they were here to kill Hartley, they would wait for darkness. Unless they were not here to kill Hartley, unless they were here to kill someone else. She keyed the radio. "Nadia, abort, you are compromised." Static, then Nadia's voice tight. "How do you know?" "Because the people at my location are not acting like they are here for Hartley. They are acting like they are waiting for a signal. Get out now." More static. "Then, I am 20 meters from the target room. I can see the files." "And they can see you. Move." "Negative. I did not come this far to leave empty-handed." "Damn it," Morgan hissed. She swung her scope back to the 2 men. They were moving now, not toward the lodge, toward the ridge, toward her. They knew. Someone had told them. Someone had triangulated her position and sent the contractors not to attack, but to pin her down while someone else moved on Nadia. Morgan made a decision. She broke position, rose from the ghillie suit like something being born from the earth, chambered around, fired. The shot crossed 800 meters in less than a second, struck the first man in the shoulder. He went down. The second man dove for cover, returned fire. Rounds cracked past Morgan's head. She moved, displaced 15 meters, fired again, missed. The man was good, trained. Briggs's voice, "You need help." Negative, get to the lodge. Make sure Wren does not move Hartley. Morgan shifted position again, scoped the tree line. The wounded man was crawling toward the truck. The second man laid down, suppressing fire. Disciplined, professional. She waited. Patience was the sniper's greatest weapon. The second man would have to reload. Everyone did eventually. She counted rounds, estimated magazine capacity. When the firing stopped, she moved. 3 shots, fast, controlled. The first hit the truck's engine block. The second shattered the windshield. The third hit the ground 3 inches from the man's head. He got the message, withdrew, dragged his partner into cover. Morgan did not pursue. She moved back to her original position, scoped the lodge. Wren was at the window now, staring out. He could not see her, but he knew something was wrong. His hand moved to his earpiece. He was calling someone. Nadia's voice burst through the radio. "I have it. Hard drive, files, all of it. But I have 4 hostiles converging on my position. Can you break contact?" "Working on it." Gunfire erupted in the background. Close, automatic weapons, then silence. Then Nadia again, breathless. 3 down, 1 ran. "I am mobile." "Exfil route." "North Ridge, same place we met." "Copy. I will provide cover when you break the tree line." Morgan checked her ammunition. 4 magazines left. Enough for a war if she made every shot count. Not enough for a war if she did not. At the lodge, movement. Wren was hustling Hartley toward the vehicles. The senator looked confused, angry, demanding answers. Wren was not giving them. He was doing what handlers do, protecting the asset, getting him clear. "Briggs, they are loading Hartley into the SUV." "Stop them," Morgan said. "How exactly?" "Drive onto the property. Badge them. Tell them there is a credible threat and you are taking protective custody." "I do not have jurisdiction." "You have a badge and a gun. That is all the jurisdiction you need until someone with more authority shows up." "What if Wren has more authority?" "Then we find out whose side he is really on," Morgan said. She watched through the scope as Briggs's cruiser came barreling up the drive, lights flashing. The SUV stopped. Wren got out. Briggs got out. 2 men shouting at each other across 10 meters of gravel while Hartley sat in the vehicle looking like someone who regretted leaving Washington. The confrontation lasted 30 seconds. Then Wren pulled a phone, made a call, listened. His face changed. He handed the phone to Briggs. Briggs listened, went pale, handed it back, stepped aside. The SUV drove away. Morgan keyed the radio. "Carl, what happened?" "That was Hayes," Briggs said quietly. "He told me to stand down or he would have me arrested for obstruction. Said he had 3 federal marshals en route. Said if I wanted to keep my pension, I would get in my car and leave." "And you believed him?" "I believed he has the power to do exactly what he said." Morgan watched the SUV disappear down the valley road. Watched Wren get into the second vehicle and follow. Watched her chance to protect Hartley evaporate like morning frost under a sun that did not care about good intentions. Nadia's voice, "I am at the tree line, northeast quadrant, I have company." Morgan swung her rifle north, scoped the forest edge, saw Nadia running, saw 3 men behind her, closing fast. Morgan did not hesitate. She fired. The trailing man dropped. She worked the bolt, fired again. The second man dove for cover. The third stopped, realized he was being engaged from a different vector, retreated. Nadia reached the ridge, collapsed behind a boulder, gasping, "You are a good shot." I am an excellent shot, Morgan corrected. Can you move? Give me a minute. We do not have a minute, they will flank. Then cover me while I catch my breath. Morgan scanned the forest. Movement at 10 o'clock. Two more contractors moving through the trees with the slow inevitability of people who knew their target was pinned. She fired twice. Both shots hit tree trunks inches from their heads. They got the message. Went to ground. Nadia rose, stumbled toward Morgan's position, made it 50 meters before her leg gave out. She went down hard. Morgan saw blood, dark, arterial. You are hit, Morgan said. Notice that, Nadia gasped. Morgan made another decision, the kind that changed everything. She broke cover, left the rifle, pulled her sidearm, ran to Nadia, grabbed her, dragged her behind the ridgeline as bullets snapped overhead. Up close, Nadia looked worse, pale, shocky, blood soaking through her pant leg. Morgan ripped the fabric, found the wound, through and through. Femoral artery nicked but not severed, survivable if treated, fatal if not. She pulled a tourniquet from her kit, applied it above the wound, cranked it tight. Nadia screamed. Morgan did not apologize. Pain meant alive. Silence meant dead. Can you walk? Morgan asked. Can I fly? Nadia shot back. Not helpful. Neither is your bedside manner. Morgan checked the forest. The contractors were moving again, coordinating. They would rush soon. 2 against 4 was bad math. 2 with 1 wounded was suicide. She keyed the radio. Carl, I need an exit. You are 8 clicks from the nearest road, Briggs said. I can meet you at the fire access trail. 20 minutes. We have maybe 10 before they overrun us. Then I suggest you run fast, Briggs said. Morgan hauled Nadia up, supported her weight. They moved down the ridge at a stumbling jog that was neither fast enough nor sustainable. Behind them, voices, orders being called, the contractors regrouping. A bullet hit the rock beside Morgan's head. Chips stung her face. She turned, fired blind, 3 rounds, suppressive, not accurate, did not need to be, just needed to make them think twice about pushing too hard. They reached a gully, dropped into it, followed it north. The ground was steep, loose. Nadia fell twice. The second time she did not get up. Leave me, she said. Take the hard drive. Finish this. Morgan looked at her, at the blood, at the face going waxen, at the eyes that still held fire even as the body failed. My father did not leave your father, Morgan said. I am not leaving you. Your father died for that choice. Then I will die for mine. Morgan dragged Nadia another 100 meters. Her lungs burned. Her legs shook. Behind them, the contractors were getting closer. She could hear them, smell them, the scent of gun oil and sweat that always preceded violence. The radio crackled. Briggs, I see you. 200 meters west, keep coming. Morgan kept coming, fell, rose, fell again. Nadia was dead weight now, unconscious or close to it. The hard drive in her pack pressed against Morgan's ribs like a second heartbeat. Ahead, headlights. Briggs's cruiser. He was out of the vehicle, rifle up, firing past them into the forest, covering fire, the beautiful chaos of someone who knew how to fight. Morgan reached the cruiser, collapsed. Briggs grabbed Nadia, threw her into the back seat, then grabbed Morgan, pushed her into the passenger side, jumped behind the wheel. The cruiser fishtailed, found traction, roared away down the fire trail as bullets starred the rear window. Morgan looked back, saw 4 men standing at the tree line, watching, not pursuing. They had made their point, she had made hers. Nobody won, everybody bled. Briggs drove like a man who had done this before, fast, controlled, taking corners at speeds that made the suspension scream. He did not speak. Morgan did not either. Behind them, Nadia's breathing was shallow and wet. "How bad is she?" Briggs asked. "Bad," Morgan said. "She needs a hospital." Hospital means questions. Questions mean federal custody. Federal custody means she disappears. Then where? Briggs thought, there is a vet, 20 miles south, owes me favors, keeps his mouth shut, patched up plenty of people who could not afford official medicine. He is a veterinarian. He is a surgeon who lost his license for drinking, still knows which end of a scalpel cuts. Best we have. Morgan looked at Nadia, at the tourniquet, at the blood pooling on the seat. Do it. The vet's place was a farmhouse that had seen better decades. Briggs pulled around back, killed the lights. They carried Nadia inside. The vet was 70 if he was a day, shaking hands, bourbon breath. But when he saw the wound, something in him steadied. Muscle memory older than the tremors. "Get her on the table," he said. They worked for 2 hours. Morgan and Briggs holding Nadia down while the vet stitched and clamped and cursed. No anesthetic except whiskey. No sterile field except what bleach could provide. Frontier medicine. Civil War medicine. The kind that saved some and killed others, and you did not know which until the fever came or did not. When it was done, Nadia was pale as paper and breathing like something broken. But breathing. The vet washed his hands, poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon, drank it in one swallow. "She will live or she will not," he said. "I did what I could. Keep the wound clean. Change the dressing every 6 hours. If she spikes a fever above 103, say your goodbyes." Morgan nodded. "Thank you." "Thank Carl," the vet said. "I'm just paying off old debts." He looked at Briggs. "We square now." "We are square," Briggs said. They moved Nadia to a back room, laid her on a cot. Morgan sat beside her while Briggs made coffee that tasted like burnt regret. "You want to tell me what this is about?" Briggs asked. "Not particularly," Morgan said. "Fair enough. But at some point people are going to ask why a federal sniper shot 4 contractors and ran off with a Russian spy." "She is not a spy," Morgan said. "She is a witness." "To what?" "To the kind of crimes people start wars to cover up." Briggs sipped his coffee, looked old in the lamplight, tired, but not broken, never broken. "You know," he said, "when I refused to testify the way they wanted in Beirut, my told me I was a traitor, said I was helping the enemy. I told him the enemy was not the people who bombed us. It was the people who put us in that building with inadequate security and called it acceptable risk." "What did he say to that?" "He said I did not understand the bigger picture. That sacrifices had to be made. That war was complicated." "And what did you say?" "I said war is simple. You kill people. Everything else is just the lie you tell yourself so you can sleep." Morgan looked at him. "Do you sleep?" Briggs smiled sadly. "Not as much as I used to." At midnight Nadia woke. Her eyes opened slow, focused on Morgan. For a moment she looked confused. Then memory returned, and with it pain. "Did I die?" Nadia asked. "Not yet," Morgan said. "Disappointing. I was hoping for something more dramatic." "You are dramatic enough alive." Nadia tried to sit up, failed, gasped, "Lay back the hard drive. Did you get it?" Morgan pulled it from Nadia's pack, held it up. Intact, encrypted, useless without the password. Nadia smiled. "The password is your father's birthday. Month, day, year, no spaces." "How do you know that?" "Because Hayes is arrogant enough to think that using a dead man's birthday makes him sentimental instead of predictable." Morgan turned the drive over in her hands. "This has everything. Names, dates, financial transactions, audio files, Enough to put 15 people in federal prison for the rest of their lives. Enough to dismantle an operation that has been running since the Cold War never really ended. And the principal, the voice on the recording. There is a video file, unencrypted, security footage from a meeting 3 months ago. Hayes and principal in the same room. No filters, no voice distortion. Just two men planning how to kill a senator and blame a woman they have never met. Morgan felt something unlock in her chest. Hope was too strong a word. Possibility was closer. You risked your life for this. I risked my life for my father, Nadia said. The same way you are risking yours. We are not so different. We are very different, Morgan said. You kill for revenge. I kill for orders. And which one makes you sleep better? Morgan did not answer. Briggs appeared in the doorway. You two should see this. They moved to the living room. Briggs had the television on. News. Breaking. A reporter standing in front of Eagle Creek Lodge with lights and cameras and the theatrical urgency that came with stories too big to bury. The reporter spoke. Senator William Hartley survived what federal officials are calling an attempted assassination this evening. Sources say multiple gunmen attacked the senator's security detail in what appears to be a coordinated strike. The senator was unharmed, but two private contractors were killed. The FBI is investigating possible ties to foreign intelligence services. The screen cut to footage, shaky, phone video. Someone had filmed the aftermath. Morgan recognized the lodge, the vehicles, and there for 3 seconds her face, blurred, distant, but visible. The reporter continued. Authorities are seeking this woman for questioning. She is believed to be a person of interest. If you have information, please contact the FBI tip line. The screen showed a photo, not recent, from her military file. Sergeant First Class Keira Morgan, decorated, dangerous, wanted. Briggs muted the television. Notice what they did not say, he murmured. No mention of the contractors you killed earlier. No description of the firefight at the tower. They are calling it an assassination attempt on Hartley, not a gunfight with armed mercenaries. Morgan understood, because admitting contractors were involved means admitting who sent them. Hayes and Kellerman scrubbed the scene, probably told FBI it was classified national security, made the bodies disappear. Exactly, Briggs said. You are not wanted for killing contractors. You are wanted for being inconvenient. Big difference. Well, Morgan said, that complicates things. They are burning you, Nadia said quietly, making you the villain so they can be the heroes. Morgan's phone buzzed. She looked at it, a text from Vance. Sergeant, you are ordered to turn yourself in immediately. Failure to comply will result in federal charges. This is your last chance to do the right thing. Morgan deleted the text, turned off the phone, looked at Briggs and Nadia. We need to move. This place is compromised the moment someone traces the cruiser. Where do we go? Briggs asked. To the one place they will not expect, Morgan said. Back to the beginning. Back to where my father died. Nadia's eyes widened. You mean Kandahar? No, Morgan said. I mean the Pentagon. We are going to walk into that building, and we are going to make them answer for every lie they ever told. That is suicide, Nadia said. Maybe, Morgan said, but it is also the only play they will not see coming. They expect me to run, to hide, to disappear into the same shadows my father disappeared into. I am done disappearing. Briggs looked at her. You have a plan. I have a hard drive full of evidence and a witness who cannot be disappeared without raising questions. I have the truth. That has to count for something. The truth gets people killed, Briggs said. So does silence, Morgan said. My father was silent. He died anyway. I would rather die speaking than live swallowing lies. Nadia pushed herself upright despite the pain. If we do this, we do it now. Before they can move the senator. Before they can spin the narrative so far from reality that no one believes what we show them. Can you travel? Morgan asked. I can do what needs doing, Nadia said. The rest is just details. Briggs stood. I will get the cruiser. We leave in 10 minutes. Pack light. Move fast. And for God's sake, someone figure out how we get into the most secure building in America without getting shot. Morgan looked at the hard drive, at the weight of it, at the truth it contained. She thought of her father's voice on the recording, the exhaustion, the resignation, the hope that his daughter would someday understand. She understood now. The war was not over. It had just been fought in rooms she had not been allowed to enter, by people she had been trained to trust, against enemies who wore the same uniform. But wars end when someone refuses to keep fighting them the way they have always been fought. Morgan checked her sidearm, loaded a fresh magazine, looked at Nadia and Briggs, two broken people held together by anger and the thinnest strand of hope that maybe this time someone would listen. Let us go make them listen, she said. They walked out into the Montana night. The stars were sharp and cold. The mountains stood silent. Somewhere in the distance, men with badges and guns were looking for them. Somewhere closer, men without badges but plenty of guns were waiting. And somewhere, in a building shaped like the geometry of power, General Hayes was making calls to ensure the story ended the way he wanted. But stories do not end where powerful men want them to. They end where the truth demands. And the truth, Morgan had learned, was a patient hunter. It waited in shadows. It moved without sound. And when it finally took its shot, it never missed. She got into the cruiser. Briggs drove. Nadia bled quietly in the back. And Keira Morgan, daughter of a dead man who had died for asking questions, prepared to ask the only question that mattered. Why? The answer was coming, and with it the reckoning. The drive east took 14 hours. Briggs pushed the cruiser hard through darkness that swallowed mountains and spat out plains. They stopped once for gas at a station where the attendant was too tired to look at faces and too underpaid to care. Nadia slept in the back seat, fevered and pale. Morgan rode shotgun with the hard drive in her lap and a question in her chest that grew heavier with every mile. Who was principal? The video file sat encrypted on the drive, password protected separately from the rest. Nadia had said it would show everything. Two men in a room planning murder with the casual efficiency of people ordering lunch. Morgan wanted to watch it, needed to watch it, but something stopped her. Some instinct that said once you saw a thing, you could not unsee it. And maybe she needed one more night believing the men who sent her to war had been something other than monsters. Dawn broke over Virginia like a wound opening. The sky bled red and orange. Briggs pulled into a rest stop 20 miles from the Pentagon, killed the engine. They sat in silence, watching 18-wheelers idle and families stumble toward bathrooms with the zombie shuffle of people who had driven through the night. How do we do this? Briggs asked. Morgan did not answer immediately. She was running scenarios. Every approach had holes. Every hole had bullets. The Pentagon was not a building you walked into carrying evidence of treason. It was a fortress designed to keep secrets in and truth out. We need Hartley, she finally said. The senator. He is the only one with authority to convene an emergency hearing. If we can get to him, if we can show him the files, he can force Hayes to answer in a forum that cannot be classified. Hartley is probably in protective custody, Briggs said. After last night, they will have him locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Then we make him come to us, Morgan said. How? We give him something he wants more than safety. We give him the truth about his father. Briggs looked at her. His father has been dead 20 years. And his father was on the oversight committee for Operation Ember, which means his father knew what Hayes was doing, maybe approved it, maybe profited from it. Either way, Hartley needs to know. That could destroy him politically. Morgan met Briggs's eyes. Some things matter more than politics. In the back seat, Nadia stirred, her eyes opened, focused. Where are we? Virginia, Morgan said, 20 miles out. Nadia sat up slowly, winced. Her leg was wrapped in fresh bandages they had changed at a truck stop somewhere in Pennsylvania. The wound was not infected yet, but yet was doing heavy lifting. Give me the drive. Morgan handed it over. Nadia pulled a laptop from her pack, booted it. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with the muscle memory of someone who had lived in code and encryption for longer than most people lived in houses. I am going to upload the files to a dead drop server, Nadia said. Multiple backups. If anything happens to us, it releases automatically in 72 hours. Every journalist, every congressman, every news outlet in the country gets a copy. Insurance, Morgan said. Survival, Nadia corrected. They can kill us. They cannot kill the information, not anymore. She worked in silence for 10 minutes, then nodded. Done. The dead man's switch is armed. Now we just have to live long enough to disarm it. Briggs pulled out his phone, made a call. The conversation was brief, careful. When he hung up, he looked grim. I have a contact, former JAG officer. Works at the Pentagon now. She owes me. She can get us inside, but only for 30 minutes, and only if we come unarmed. Morgan laughed without humor. They want us to walk into the lion's den without teeth. They want you to prove you are not the threat they are making you out to be, Briggs said. Morgan looked at her rifle in the trunk. The M2010 that had been her companion through a dozen deployments and 1,000 shots. Setting it down felt like cutting off a limb, but limbs grew back. Truth did not. All right, she said. We go in clean. But if this is a trap, I am taking as many of them with me as I can before they put me down. Briggs smiled grimly. That is the spirit. They cleaned up in the rest stop bathroom, changed clothes. Morgan wore civilian attire that felt wrong against her skin. Jeans, a jacket, nothing tactical, nothing that screamed soldier. She looked in the mirror and saw a woman who could be anyone, a teacher, a mother, someone with a normal life and normal problems. The stranger stared back, and neither of them believed the lie. At 0900, they pulled into the Pentagon parking lot. The building rose like a monument to geometry and power. 5 sides, 5 rings, 5 stories of secrets stacked on secrets. Morgan had been here before, but always as someone with clearance and orders. Now she was someone with neither, just questions and a hard drive full of answers no one wanted asked. Briggs's contact met them at the entrance. Captain Linda Reeves, 50-something. Gray-streaked hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. She wore her uniform like armor and her expression like a weapon. Sheriff Briggs, she said. Her voice was flat, professional. You have 15 minutes. Security escort only. No weapons, no recording devices. Any deviation and you will be arrested. Understood, Briggs said. Reeves looked at Morgan, at Nadia. Her eyes lingered on Nadia's limp. You brought a foreign national into the Pentagon. She is a witness, Morgan said. She is FSB, Reeves said. Do not insult my intelligence. Former FSB, Nadia said. I defected 6 months ago. Your people know this. They chose not to act on it because it was inconvenient. Reeves's jaw tightened. 15 minutes starting now. They walked through security, metal detectors, bag searches. The hard drive went through the X-ray machine. A guard examined it, looked at Reeves. She nodded. He handed it back. The hallways were exactly as Morgan remembered. Polished floors, fluorescent lights, men and women in uniform moving with purpose from one classified briefing to another. The machinery of empire grinding forward with the inevitability of a machine that had forgotten it was run by people. Reeves led them deep into the complex, past offices, past conference rooms, down into sublevels where the air tasted recycled and the walls grew thicker. She stopped at a door marked restricted access, swiped a badge. The lock clicked. Inside a small briefing room, table, chairs, no windows, a man waited there, older, 65, civilian suit, tired eyes. Senator Hartley stood when they entered. He looked smaller than he had on television, more human, less like the idea of power and more like someone who carried it until the weight bent his spine. "Sergeant Morgan," he said, his voice was quiet, measured, "you have caused quite a bit of trouble." "With respect, Senator," Morgan said, "the trouble started long before me." Hartley gestured to the chairs. "Sit, please." They sat. Reeves stood by the door, arms crossed, ready to intervene if this meeting became something other than words. Hartley folded his hands on the table. "I have been briefed on the situation. General Hayes claims you are suffering from combat stress, that you killed 2 contractors and fled the scene with a known foreign intelligence operative, that you represent a clear and present danger to national security." "And what do you claim, Senator?" Morgan asked. Hartley looked at her for a long moment. "I claim I do not know what to believe anymore, so I am here to listen. You have 15 minutes to convince me." Morgan slid the hard drive across the table. "Everything you need to know is on this drive. Financial records, audio intercepts, video evidence. 20 years of a black program called Operation Ember. Your father helped oversee it. General Hayes ran it, and my father died trying to expose it." Hartley stared at the drive like it was a live grenade. "My father died of a heart attack." "Your father died because he knew too much," Nadia said, "the same way mine did. The same way 13 CIA officers did. Men clean up their messes. Powerful men bury them." Hartley picked up the drive. "What am I going to see when I open this?" "The truth," Morgan said, "whether you want it or not." Hartley looked at Reeves. "Captain, I need a secure terminal, SCIF level clearance." Reeves hesitated. "Sir, this is highly irregular." "I am aware," Hartley said. "Do it anyway." 10 minutes later they were in a sensitive compartmented information facility 3 levels deeper. The room was lead-lined, electronically shielded, the kind of place where secrets went to hide from the world. A terminal sat on a desk, single monitor, no network connection. Hartley inserted the drive. A password prompt appeared. Morgan looked at Nadia. "You said his birthday." Nadia pulled out a small piece of paper, blood-stained, creased. "The password is a 12-digit alphanumeric sequence. I extracted it from the safe house security logs. Hayes typed it 3 times when accessing the server. I watched through thermal imaging." She handed the paper to Morgan. The sequence made no sense at first. Then Morgan saw the pattern. The first 6 digits were her father's service number. The last 6 were the coordinates where he died, Kandahar, down to the 2nd decimal. "He used my father as a cipher," Morgan said quietly. "Men like Hayes always do," Nadia said. "They think using the dead as passwords makes them respectful. Really, it just makes them predictable to people who study the dead." Morgan typed the sequence. The files appeared, hundreds of them, decades of documentation. Hartley opened one at random. "Read." His face went pale. He opened another, and another, each one worse than the last. interrogation logs that described torture with clinical detachment, transfer orders for prisoners who were never seen again, bank records showing payments to offshore accounts, names, dates, amounts. Hartley sat back, his hands shook. This cannot be real. It is, Morgan said, every word, every transaction, every death. Hartley looked at her. Why are you showing me this? Why not go to the press, to the FBI? Because the FBI answers to the people who did this, Morgan said, and the press will not touch it without corroboration from someone with authority. You are that authority, Senator. You chair the Armed Services Committee. You have the power to convene hearings that cannot be classified or dismissed. You are asking me to destroy my father's legacy. I am asking you to save your country from men who think they are above it, Morgan said. Hartley stood, walked to the corner of the room, stood with his back to them. For a long moment he did not move. Then his shoulders sagged. When he turned back he looked older, broken, but something in his eyes was harder than before. There is a video file, he said, encrypted separately. What is on it? Proof of who is really running Ember, Nadia said. The man Hayes calls principal. Hartley looked at the screen, at the file icon, at the choice he had not yet made but could feel coming like a train in a tunnel. Show me. Nadia leaned forward, typed the password. The file opened. Video began to play. The footage was security camera, black and white, time-stamped from 3 months prior. A conference room somewhere in this building. 2 men sat across from each other. One was General Paul Hayes. The other was older, silver hair, expensive suit, a face Morgan recognized from televised hearings and press conferences. Secretary of Defense Richard Kellerman. On screen, Kellerman spoke. The audio was clear. We have a problem. Operation Ember has been compromised. Someone is asking questions. Hayes who? Kellerman, Senator Hartley, the son. He has been requesting files on his father's oversight work. If he digs deep enough, he will find the whole program. Hayes, then we redirect him, create a crisis, give him something else to focus on. Kellerman, I was thinking something more permanent. Hayes, you want him eliminated. Kellerman, I want him to have an accident, or better yet, I want him to be a victim, a martyr, killed by foreign agents in a tragic incident that justifies expanding our security apparatus. 2 birds, 1 bullet. Hayes and the woman, the one asking about her father. Kellerman, use her. She is a trained asset. Deploy her to protect Hartley. When the assassination happens, make sure she is close enough to take the blame but not close enough to stop it. Then activate Protocol 7. She disappears. We control the narrative. Hayes, what about the Russian, the one killing our people? Kellerman, let her kill a few more. It adds authenticity. When the time is right, we eliminate her too. Tie it all together in a neat package. Foreign plot, rogue soldier, national tragedy. We get more funding, more authority, more control. Hayes, and if something goes wrong? Kellerman smiled on screen. It was the smile of a man who had never worried about consequences because he had never faced them. Nothing will go wrong, he said. We have been doing this for 20 years. We are very good at it. The video ended. The room was silent. Hartley stood frozen. His face had gone from pale to gray. He looked like a man watching his entire worldview collapse in real time. Secretary Kellerman, he whispered, the Secretary of Defense. The third-ranking official in the Department of Defense, Nadia said. The man who advises the president on military matters. The man who controls budgets and deployments and the lives of everyone who wears a uniform. Hartley turned to Morgan. You were right. This goes all the way to the top. Morgan stood. Senator, you have a choice. You can bury this. Protect the institution. Tell yourself that some secrets are necessary for national security, or you can do what my father could not. You can speak the truth in a place where it cannot be silenced. And if I do that, if I burn it all down, then men like Kellerman lose their power, Morgan said. And maybe, just maybe, the next soldier who asks questions does not end up in a grave marked with lies. Hartley looked at the screen, at Kellerman's frozen face, at the smile that had not yet learned to fear consequences. He reached for the phone on the desk, dialed a number from memory. "This is Senator William Hartley," he said. "I need an emergency session of the Armed Services Committee, full attendance, classified briefing. I am invoking my authority under Senate Rule 7. This is not a request." He listened. Then his voice hardened. "I do not care if the secretary has a scheduling conflict. Tell him if he is not in that chamber in 1 hour, I will have the sergeant-at-arms arrest him for contempt of Congress." He hung up, looked at Morgan. "You just ended my political career." "No," Morgan said. "You just saved it. History will remember you as the man who chose country over comfort." "History," Hartley said bitterly, "is written by people like Kellerman. But maybe this time we can write a different ending." Reeves stepped forward. "Senator, if you are serious about this, you need protection. Real protection, not Hayes's people." Hartley nodded. "Get me a Marine security detail. No one from Army or Air Force. No one who might be compromised." Reeves pulled her phone, made calls. The machinery of response began to turn. 1 hour later, the Armed Services Committee chamber filled with senators and staffers and confusion. Hartley had not told anyone why he called the emergency session, just that it was critical, that it could not wait. That failure to attend would be noted for the record. Morgan watched from a secure observation room, Briggs beside her, Nadia in a chair, her wounded leg elevated, her face tight with pain and determination. Below them, the chamber looked like theater. Senators at their desks. Cameras covered because this was classified. The Secretary of Defense entering with the confidence of a man who believed he was untouchable. Kellerman took his seat at the witness table. Hayes sat beside him. Both men looked calm, professional. They had testified before Congress 100 times. This was routine, familiar ground. Hartley gavelled the session to order. The room fell silent. He looked at Kellerman with an expression that held no warmth and no fear, just the cold weight of a man who had spent a sleepless night watching his father's legacy burn. "Mr. Secretary," Hartley began, "I have evidence that you and General Hayes have been operating an illegal black program for the last 20 years, that this program has resulted in the deaths of American citizens, that you have committed murder, treason, and conspiracy to commit terrorism on United States soil." The room erupted, senators shouting, staffers scrambling. Kellerman did not move. He sat perfectly still, his face a mask of controlled neutrality. Senator Kellerman said quietly, "These are serious allegations. I assume you have proof." Hartley held up the hard drive. "I have financial records showing payments from your office to offshore accounts. I have audio recordings of you planning the assassination of a sitting United States senator. I have video footage of you in this building discussing how to cover up murders. And I have testimony from witnesses who will swear under oath that you are a traitor to everything this uniform represents." Kellerman's mask slipped, just a fraction, a tightness around the eyes, a twitch at the corner of his mouth. "Witnesses can be discredited," he said. "Evidence can be challenged. You are playing a dangerous game, Senator." "This is not a game," Hartley said. "This is justice." He played the video. Every senator in the chamber watched Kellerman and Hayes plan murder with the casual efficiency of men ordering lunch. When it ended, The silence was absolute. Hayes stood. His voice was steady. "Senator, that video is clearly fabricated, a deepfake designed to undermine confidence in our national security apparatus." "Is it?" Hartley said. "Then you will not mind submitting to a polygraph, to a forensic analysis of your communications, to a full audit of your financial records." Hayes said nothing. Kellerman stood. "Senator, I will not dignify these accusations with a response. I am exercising my right to counsel." "You are exercising your right to run," Hartley said, "but you cannot run from this room. Guards, secure the exits. No one leaves until I say so." Capitol Police moved to the doors. Marines in dress uniforms. Men whose loyalty was to the institution, not to the individuals who corrupted it. Kellerman looked around the chamber, at the senators staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to the careful neutrality of people calculating political advantage. He looked at Hayes, at Morgan watching from the observation window, at the hard drive on the table that contained 2 decades of his crimes. And for the first time in a career built on certainty, Richard Kellerman looked uncertain. "Senator," he said slowly, "if we could discuss this in private." "No," Hartley said. "No more private discussions, no more classified briefings, no more secrets. You will answer for what you have done. Here, now, in front of these witnesses and before God." Kellerman's hand moved toward his jacket. 2 Marines were on him instantly, weapons drawn. They pulled him down, searched him, found a phone, nothing else. Hartley looked at Hayes. "General, do you have anything to say?" Hayes met his eyes. He looked older suddenly, tired, the weight of 20 years settling on shoulders that had carried it alone for too long. "Yes," he said, "I have something to say." The room leaned forward. "I did what I thought was necessary," Hayes said. "I made choices that kept this country safe, choices that required sacrifice. Major James Morgan was a good man who asked questions I could not answer, so I made sure he could not ask them anymore. I did the same to 13 others. I authorized black sites. I sold intelligence to maintain operational security. I planned to eliminate Senator Hartley because he represented a threat to national stability." He paused, looked directly at Morgan in the observation window. "And I am sorry," he said, "not because I was caught, but because I was wrong. I believed the ends justified the means. I believed some lies were necessary. I believed I was protecting something larger than myself. But I was only protecting my own power. And in doing so, I became the enemy I swore to fight." It was not an excuse. It was not absolution. It was just the truth, spoken finally, after too many years. Hartley turned to the committee. "I move that we refer this matter to the Department of Justice for immediate prosecution. All in favor?" Every hand went up. "Motion carries," Hartley said. He looked at the Marines. "Take them into custody. Full security protocol. No communication with outside parties until transfer to DOJ." The Marines moved forward. Kellerman tried to speak. They silenced him with handcuffs. Hayes went quietly, almost with relief, as if the burden of secrets had finally been lifted and even a prison cell looked like freedom. Colonel Wren stood at the back of the chamber. Morgan watched him through the glass. He had not moved during the entire hearing, had not tried to flee, had not tried to defend his commanders. He simply stood, hands clasped behind his back, and waited. A Marine captain approached him. Wren extended his wrists without being asked. The handcuffs clicked. As they let him out, he looked up at the observation window, made eye contact with Morgan, did not nod, did not smile, just acknowledged her with the faintest shift of his eyes. He had known this was coming, Morgan realized. Maybe not today, maybe not this way, but he had known. And unlike Hayes, unlike Kellerman, Wren had made his peace with it long before the truth caught up. Some men confess, some men run, some men just wait for the bill to come due. In the observation room, Morgan exhaled. She had not realized she was holding her breath. Beside her, Briggs put a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. "We did it," Morgan corrected, "all of us." Nadia closed her eyes. Her face was peaceful for the first time since Morgan had met her. "My father can rest now," she said quietly. "So can mine," Morgan said. 2 days later, Morgan sat in a different room. This one had windows, sunlight, coffee that did not taste like regret. She wore civilian clothes and no one had arrested her yet. That felt like progress. A knock, the door opened. Hartley entered. He looked exhausted but unbowed, the kind of tired that came from doing the right thing when it cost everything. "Sergeant Morgan," he said. "Senator," she replied. He sat across from her, pulled out a folder. Inside, documents, official-looking, stamped and signed. "The charges against you have been dropped," he said. "Self-defense. Acting to prevent a terrorist attack. The official record will show that you protected me from an assassination attempt by foreign operatives. You will be quietly reinstated to active duty with full rank and benefits, if you want it. And if I do not want it, then you walk away with an honorable discharge and the thanks of a grateful nation, unofficially." Morgan looked at the papers, at the offer of normalcy, of going back to the world where she taught students and measured distance in meters and pretended the war was something other people fought. What about Nadia? Political asylum granted, Hartley said. She will be relocated under a new identity, protected, as much as anyone can be protected from the kind of people who do not forgive witnesses. And Kellerman, Hayes. Federal custody. The trial will be closed, classified, but they will spend the rest of their lives in prison. That is more than most traitors get. Morgan folded the papers, set them aside. "I need to ask you something, Senator." "Anything." "Was it worth it, destroying your father's legacy, burning down the system you were part of, living with the knowledge that half the country will call you a traitor for exposing this?" Hartley smiled sadly. "My father's legacy was built on lies. The system I was part of was corrupt, and I would rather be called a traitor by the guilty than a hero by the complicit. So yes, it was worth it." Morgan nodded. "Then I will take the discharge, honorable, and I will walk away, because I have spent enough of my life following orders from people who did not deserve to give them." Hartley extended his hand. She shook it. His grip was firm, honest, the handshake of equals. "What will you do now?" he asked. "I do not know," Morgan said. "Maybe teach, maybe disappear, maybe just sit on a porch somewhere and watch the world turn without me for a while." "You have earned that," Hartley said. He stood, turned to leave, paused at the door. "Your father would be proud of you. I hope you know that." "I do," Morgan said, finally. He left. Morgan sat alone in the quiet room. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Outside, Washington, D.C. continued its endless churn of power and ambition, and the small human dramas that played out in the shadow of monuments to dead ideals. She thought of her father, of the coin he had carried, of the phrase he had taught her, fire and vanish. She had fired. The truth had burned through lies like a bullet through flesh. Now it was time for the other half, time to vanish. 3 months later, Morgan stood on a ridge in Montana. Different ridge, different view, same mountains. She had bought a small cabin with the savings she had accumulated from a decade of deployments to places she could not name. The cabin had no neighbors, no internet, just trees and sky and the kind of silence that let a person hear their own thoughts again. She set up a target at 1,000 meters, loaded her rifle. The M2010 they had returned to her along with her discharge papers. It felt good in her hands, familiar, like coming home. She fired, the bullet crossed the distance, struck center mass. She smiled, some skills you never lost. A vehicle approached on the access road. Morgan scoped it out of habit, recognized the truck. Sheriff Briggs, former sheriff. He had retired 2 weeks after the hearings, moved to Montana, bought a place 20 miles from hers. He got out, walked to where she stood, looked at the target, looked at the hole. "Still showing off," he said. "Still practicing," she corrected. Briggs handed her a beer. They sat on the tailgate of his truck and watched the sun move toward the western peaks. The silence between them was comfortable, the silence of people who had survived something together and did not need to speak about it to remember. "You hear from Nadia?" Briggs asked. Morgan pulled a postcard from her jacket. No return address. Photo of Siberian wilderness. On the back, 3 words in careful handwriting. "Fire and vanish." Morgan smiled. "She is adjusting," she said. "And you?" Morgan thought about that, about the nightmares that came less often now, about the mornings when she woke up without checking for threats, about the slow process of learning to be a person instead of a weapon. "I am getting there," she said. They finished their beers as the sun touched the mountains, turned them gold, then red, then purple, the colors of endings and beginnings and everything in between. Briggs stood. "I am having some people over tomorrow, nothing fancy. Burgers, beer. A few vets who are also trying to figure out how to be civilians again. You should come." "Maybe I will," Morgan said. He drove away. Morgan stayed on the ridge as darkness came. The stars emerged one by one, sharp and clear in the thin mountain air. She thought of her father somewhere under those same stars, in a grave at Arlington that now bore the truth of how he died and why. She thought of the men who had lied to her, who were now in cells where lies could not save them. She thought of Nadia somewhere in the vastness of Russia, living under a new name with old scars. She thought of Hartley in Washington, fighting battles that would never make headlines because he had learned that the most important fights were the quiet ones. And she thought of herself, standing on this ridge, alive, free, no longer running from ghosts or chasing them. She unslung her rifle, cleaned it one last time, put it in the case, carried it back to the cabin, locked it in the safe. She did not know if she would ever fire it again, did not know if she wanted to. Some wars ended with a bang. Some ended with the simple act of putting down a weapon and walking away. Morgan walked to the porch, sat in a chair that overlooked the valley. The night was cold and clear. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. The sound was lonely and beautiful and true. She closed her eyes, let the silence fill her, let the weight of 20 years begin to lift. Fire and vanish. She had fired the shot that mattered, the one that killed the lie. Now she would vanish into the life she had earned, a life without orders, without missions, without the burden of secrets that crushed the people who carried them. Morning would come, the sun would rise, the world would continue to turn with all its cruelty and grace. And Keira Morgan, daughter of a dead man who had died asking questions, would be there to see it, not as a soldier, not as a weapon, just as a woman who had learned the hardest truth. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to fight the wars other people start. She stood, walked inside, closed the door on the night and everything it held. Tomorrow she would wake up and decide what came next. Tomorrow she would figure out how to be something other than the sum of her scars. But tonight she would sleep, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she would not dream of ghosts. The mountains stood silent witness. The stars burned cold and bright. And somewhere in the machinery of justice, men who thought they were untouchable learned what it meant to fall. The last shot had been fired. The war was over. And in a small cabin in Montana, a woman who had learned to measure the world in distance and discipline finally learned to measure it in peace. Fire and vanish. The fire had burned. The truth had been spoken. Now came the vanishing, into a life that was hers and hers alone, into the quiet that warriors earned when they finally put down their arms, into the rest of the story that no one would ever write because it was not dramatic or cinematic or filled with violence. It was just a woman, a cabin, a mountain, and the simple revolutionary act of choosing to live. That was enough, more than enough, it was everything.